Have you ever wanted to start a podcast and just didn't know where to go to get your journey started? Well, look no further than Anchor Podcasting. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it gives you everything you need for free in one spot, which you can use right from your computer or a mobile device if you need to record on the go. Creation tools allow you to edit and record your podcast to make it sound the best possible way for your audience and listeners. And they'll also distribute your podcast for you, so you don't have to go through the hassle of talking to different platforms in order to get your podcast through to everybody you wish. This includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. You can easily make money through Anchor Podcasting, and it doesn't require minimum listenership. So once you get started and set up, money can flow in from all directions. So if you're ready to get started, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.fm to get your ball rolling and start your podcast journey. You're listening to the Touch 'Em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we're going to be giving you my predictions for UFC Fight Night, Woodley versus Burns, taking place from the UFC Apex in the UFC's return to Las Vegas, Nevada. And in the main event of the evening, we have the former reigning defending welterweight champion of the world and current number one ranked welterweight in the division, Tyron, the Chosen One Woodley, going up against the current streaking number 6 ranked welterweight in the world, coming up from the lightweight division of 155 pounds to try his luck at the top, who was the top former king of the welterweight division, and that is Gilbert Durinho Burns. So without any further ado, put your mouthpieces in and strap your gloves up, because it's time to touch 'em up. All right, guys, how's everybody doing tonight? And first of all, we're going to get these predictions out to you. UFC Fight Night 173. It takes place on May 30th, and Saturday, May 30th, from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is going to be the first event that the UFC returns to Las Vegas from, obviously, since the coronavirus pandemic. I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm hoping that we get these fight cards, cranked out like I know they're going to. And then, obviously, after this fight night, the next following weekend, we have the next pay-per-view, which is UFC 250. And they announced the full card lineup for that event. So let's go through that really quick. So it started out, let's just get this off our chest, is like about a week and a half ago. No, I mean, you know what? Probably like two and a half weeks ago, we didn't really have anything announced for this card. We thought this is going to be the worst pay-per-view card ever. All we have is Amanda Nunez versus Felicia Spencer, which I've said on this podcast before. I really like Felicia Spencer's chances in that fight. I'll obviously break that down the closer we get to the card when you get my predictions, which my predictions are more than likely going to be coming out tomorrow. It's going to be a back-to-back episode for you guys, just because we've been kind of slack and we took that week off just to kind of readjust. I needed a little bit of a break, but we're coming back full steam ahead and we're swinging for the fences with those Ngannou uppercuts. So we're definitely going to get those predictions out to you most likely tomorrow. But the full card it goes like this. So on ESPN Plus and the Fight Pass early prelims, we have a flyweight division fight between Jussier Formiga and Alex Perez, which is a phenomenal fight for that division. And then we also have Alonzo Menfield versus Devin Clark. That's another really good fight. I like Alonzo Menfield. Obviously he hasn't fought in the UFC too much. I think he has like 2 or 3 fights under the promotion, but there's a lot. He's very good. Very good, and I'm excited to see it. Now you move to the ESPN and ESPN Plus prelims, and that is we start off with Charles Byrd versus Maki Patola, and then we move to Cody Stamann versus Brian Boom Boom Kelleher in the Bantamweight division. Phenomenal matchmaking here. Cody Stamann's going to obviously be looking to wrestle, close the distance, get Brian Kelleher on the ground, but he's going to have to watch out for the jiu-jitsu of Brian Kelleher, because he can easily lock up an armbar, lock up a guillotine. If he gets a hold of your neck, it's a problem. So that's going to be a really good matchup, and it's solid matchmaking there. A late addition, but I'm excited for it. Up next in the middleweight division, we have Ian Heinisch versus Gerald GM3 Mearshart. Another really good fight here. 2 guys that are on the up and up in that middleweight division, and should be good to see where they move on from here. And then to wrap up the prelims, we've got Alex Casseras versus Chase Hooper, or Ben Askren's second son. So that's going to be good. Chase Hooper's phenomenal. He won his first fight in the UFC via, I believe it was a mounted triangle armbar, something like that. If I'm wrong, forgive me. I don't remember the finish exactly, but Yeah, so we got Bruce Leroy, Alex Casseras versus Chase Hooper, and that's gonna be, I believe that's the bantamweight division, but they're former flyweights. And then for the main card, really, really solid main card. I mean, obviously, a lot of people aren't gonna like the main event. I think Amanda Nunez gets a lot of flack for what she does, and her, I don't know why. She's great. She's the greatest women's fighter of all time, and I truly believe that. And I don't really think there's a close second. I guess you could say Rousey, but Nunez knocked out Rousey, pretty easily. But she gets a lot of flack. I don't think she has too many fans, but I think the more she wins, she's gaining more fans. But I don't know. She's going to be defending her title against Felicia Spencer in the main event. So the main card is like this. To start off the main card, we've got a bantamweight fight with the return of the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley versus a longtime veteran of the sport, Eddie Wineland. That's a really good fight. I was expecting O'Malley to get a top 15, top 10 ranked opposition in his return, but they're building him up slowly. So I guess you can't be mad at the UFC for that because, this has bit them in the ass before with pushing people too quick. Kind of like Ngannou when they gave him the title shot against Stipe. And then he obviously came up short in that fight and then moved on to obviously get that string of wins back together. They did the same thing with Paige Van Zandt. They did the same thing with Sage Northcutt. They tried to do it with CM Punk, but that's a little bit of a different story. Up next on the main card is a welterweight matchup that I really like. The return of Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin. I've talked about this fight before. Obviously, I'll have predictions up most likely tomorrow, but this is a great addition to the card. Magny's going to have to try to keep it at range and avoid Anthony Rocco Martin from getting in too close. And I think he's going to be able to do it, but it's a tough fight for both guys. It's an uphill battle, more so for Anthony Rocco Martin, just because of how elite the competition has been that Neil Magny has faced compared to that of Anthony Rocco Martin. But it's still a great fight. And then we get to the two fights I'm looking forward to the most on the card. In the bantamweight division, we have the number 2 ranked Funkmaster Aljamain Sterling versus the number 4 ranked Corey the Sandman Sandhagen. Phenomenal fight. I've talked about this fight before, but yeah, I'm so excited for this fight. The winner of this fight is most likely going to be next for a shot at the title. But, we don't really know because what's going to happen with Dominic Cruz. And then we have another fight that got announced for the vacant Bantamweight Championship at UFC. We don't have an event yet, but it's in the works for the vacant title. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Sterling versus Sandhagen is phenomenal. And yeah, I'm really excited to see that. And then in the co-main event of the evening, which I thought the co-main event was going to be Sterling and Sandhagen, but it's Rafael Assunção versus the returning former bantamweight champion of the UFC, Cody No Love Garbrandt. You guys have heard me talk about Garbrandt so many times on this podcast. I've said that this guy can definitely be a world champion, and he might be the best in that 135-pound division, but he just needed to let the fights come to him and really just come into his own and not, let emotion take over and cost him these fights. And he made the adjustment with training with Mark Henry now out of New Jersey. Obviously, Mark Henry trains guys like Frankie Edgar, Magic Marlon Moraes, and many, many more. Eddie Alvarez. He's trained some of the best and some former world champions. Garbrandt's still working alongside, Uriah Faber and Team Alpha Male, but this addition of Mark Henry to his camp and to just the way he fights, light on the feet, in and out, footwork, head movement, and quick, crisp, clean hands. It's a good addition for Cody Garbrandt. So Assunção's no easy matchup. It's the guy that a lot of people have to get past to get to that title shot. I think if Garbrandt beats Assunção, he needs to fight one more fight, win that fight, and then you're back in the title picture. Tough fight for both guys, but I think Cody Garbrandt's going to come out here and shine. And yeah, this card looks good. Is it the best card? No, but there's ranked fighters on the main card. There's up and comers. There's solid matchmaking, and then you've got the double champ Amanda Nunez defending her title against a tough matchup in Felicia Spencer. So it's good, and I'm excited to see it. And then let's go into a little bit a little bit more on the bantamweight division. So, like I said, we've got the Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo for the vacant title. And to be honest, I'm not sure why they didn't give the fight to Magic Marlon Moraes. But a lot of people are saying this fight doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. What's the point? Aldo didn't even win a fight at 135. And listen, I understand, and technically you're all right. But the fight against Marlon, I thought he edged it out. I watched it again, obviously, and the more I watched it, I think Marlon probably just did just enough to get that decision, so it's not as egregious of a decision as a lot of people made it out to be at first. But you got to remember, UFC 250, the main event was supposed to be Henry Cejudo versus Jose Aldo for the title in Brazil. And that was going to be on May 9th, which is when UFC 249 actually took place. And that fight didn't happen. So now Henry's out. Obviously, he's retired. He's out of the rankings. He's not coming back. At least as we know right now, he's not coming back. So Aldo was already going to get the title shot. Now they're just giving Aldo something he was already going to get before this whole coronavirus pandemic. So putting him in there against the guy who definitely deserves a title shot in Petr Yan, who's 14-1 overall in professional mixed martial arts. This is a phenomenal fight. Politics aside, deserving title shots or not, this is a phenomenal matchup in that 135-pound division. We don't really know what to expect from Aldo at 135, considering he's only had one fight. And Petr Yan, I've done a technical breakdown on him. I've talked about him on the podcast. I think he is the next champ. I do think he beats Jose Aldo whenever they do, end up making the match official, which I think it's probably going to be on Fight Island in July, for International Fight Week. I'm guessing that's when they're going to make the fight. But this guy deserves it. Petr Yan, or Petr Yan, however you want to say his name, he has some of the most crisp and clean boxing and footwork and ability to switch stance than anybody in that sport and anybody in that division. Training out of Tiger Muay Thai. You see some of his sparring footage. I'm sure you guys can look it up if you go on YouTube and look up Petr Yan training highlights. You can see this guy's a mercenary, man. He's a machine. And he reminds me a lot of a Vasyl Lomachenko of MMA. If you guys know who Vasyl Lomachenko is, he's one of the best pro boxers in the world. And to go up against and you see the different footwork and the shifts in weight and the shifts in stances and ability to switch stances seamlessly during mid-combination and cut off opponents on angles so they have to move in the direction you don't want them to move, or they don't want to move, you want them to move. That's just, it's Petr Yan. It's Petr Yan to a T. And he's got good grappling. He's got good takedowns from the clinch, outside leg trips, clinch trips, knees up the middle, elbows, knees from the clinch, stance switches, phenomenal clean boxing, good high kicks, good kicks to the body, good takedown defense. It's a tough fight for Aldo, and this is also a tough fight for Yan because Aldo does have speed. I do expect Yan to be the faster guy in this fight, but Aldo's no slouch when it comes to speed, and I think you saw that in the Magic Marlon Moraes fight, because even though Marlon was one of the fastest guys at 135, Aldo was able to keep up with him in a lot of those exchanges and slip and rip and land that right hand down the middle, the 1-2, the left hook as he tried to circle away. And Aldo has good footwork as well. I think a lot of people forget how good Jose Aldo's management of distance and footwork and head movement is. And I think that's going to translate very well to the 135-pound division. Like I said, I don't expect him to beat Petr Yan, but it is going to be a close fight, and I'm excited whenever it decides to go down. Or whenever they make the decision what card that fight's going to be on. But I'm guessing it's going to be Fight Island without a doubt. Let's move on to the fight card. Obviously, UFC Fight Night 173 on May 30th. You got on ESPN Plus. I believe it's also going to be on ESPN TV. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, you can still watch this as long as you have ESPN on your cable provider. But yeah, Woodley versus Burns, phenomenal matchmaking here. Do I think that Burns was a smart fight for Woodley to take? No, I don't. I don't at all. I think if I was Woodley, obviously with everything going on, it was supposed to be Woodley versus Leon Rocky Edwards, but that's obviously not happening anymore. Just due to everything with the travel ban, that wouldn't be able to happen until Fight Island was up and running, which most likely will be in July or towards the end of June. But I expected, I still think this fight, it's a great fight for the rankings, and it's going to be a good fight. I don't expect this to be a bad fight at all. Now, could it be? Sure. I mean, we expected Woodley versus Thompson to be a great fight in their rematch, and it was a pretty slow fight. I did give that second fight to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think that was a pretty easy decision to make. Even though Woodley dropped him at the end in that 5th round and almost finished him, I don't think that it was enough for Woodley to get that decision. But, it is what it is, and that's what they did. So this is a tough fight. Gilbert Burns coming off a big win over Damian Maia via 1st-round knockout. Damian Maia threw a lazy jab. Gilbert Burns came over the top of the left hook, dropped him, jumped on him for ground and pound, and got the finish. So big fight for Gilbert Burns, and he's running on a 5-fight win streak. He formerly was at 155 pounds, then decided to make the jump up to 170 and has beaten the likes of Damian Maia, Gunnar Nelson, and I believe one other opposition in that 170-pound division. So this guy's great. He's got good boxing, good footwork, good ability to fake and feint his way in. But I really think that the key in this fight will be jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu of Gilbert Burns and defensive jiu-jitsu against Burns, I think that's going to be a little bit of trouble for Woodley. But obviously, we'll get to that fight, when we get further down the card. But let's start it off in the prelims. First up in the bantamweight division, we've got the last samurai, Louis Smolka, who holds a record of 16 wins and 6 losses, going up against Kenney. And Kenney, if you guys don't know, he did come into the UFC, fought Michel Pereira in a fight that he was expected to lose. People thought that this Michel Pereira, after knocking out Danny Roberts as quickly and as efficiently as he did, they thought that this guy was going to be able to, you know what? Wait. Did Michel Pereira fight Kenney, or am I thinking of a different guy? Hold on a second. I'm thinking of Tristan Connolly. I've done this before. I'm sorry, guys. So discard whatever I just said about Michel Pereira and Kenney. Never happened. But either way, again, disregard my idiotic statement there. Sorry, guys. I'm supposed to know MMA, right? And I'm confusing these two guys. But either way, good fight. And Louis Smolka at one time was thought to be the next challenger and the next contender in that 125-pound division. Obviously, from then, he's made the jump up to 135 pounds. And Louis Smolka is very good. He's got good side kicks from the lead leg of his stance. He's got a great right hand, good ability to move in and out of range, and really good jiu-jitsu. You see, if he gets you on the ground and is able to get in top position, get your back, and take your neck, he can submit, just about anybody in that division. He is he's very lanky for the division, which helps with maintaining range and keeping distance for side kicks, round kicks, front kicks up the middle, and that long right hand that he likes to throw. In the clinch, I think he's good in some fights, but against a guy who's as strong and as powerful as Kenney in the wrestling and as good defensively and offensively in terms of grappling and jiu-jitsu and wrestling exchanges, I think that this is a very, very tough fight for Louis Smolka. If you don't know Kenney, he's a former Tachi Palace Fights flyweight champion and a Legacy Fighting Alliance flyweight and bantamweight champion, and he holds a record of professional mixed martial arts of 13 wins, 2 losses, and 1 no contest. Like I said, when it comes to the fight, I think that Louis Smolka on the feet, he's going to be a more clean striker. I think his technique and his ability to throw cleaner shots, you have to give that to Louis Smolka. I think Kenney obviously fights in a southpaw stance, and he likes to get in close and throw that right hook, straight left hand, and get in close to you. He doesn't really strike too much from range unless it's kicking range. One of the biggest advantages I think Kenney has in this fight is his ability to throw his round kicks and kicks up the middle, kicks to the head, kicks to the body. He's very good with his legs. He can throw 2-touch roundhouse kicks where you touch the lead leg with the one foot, you come up and head kick with the other. He's good at throwing spinning back kicks, front kicks up the middle, round kicks to the head. This guy can throw kicks with just about anybody, and he's good at kind of being light on the feet. He is a little bit labored when he throws his strikes, but when it comes to grappling, I'm obviously training out of the lab with John Crouch. This guy has good defensive jiu-jitsu, good defensive wrestling, and good offensive ability on the ground as well to change position, reverse positions in a lot of his fights. I watched one of the fights he just had. It might have been against Manny Bermudez. I'm not 100% sure if that's who he fought. Let's check that out really quick, actually, because I can throw that up. Let's see, Fight Pass. We'll go on here and we'll check it out because I just watched the fight this morning. And I liked what I saw in terms of his ability to maintain top position, his ability to get takedowns from the clinch, and much, much more. So let's see. Casey Kenney. Yeah, so I was right. Manny Bermudez at UFC 241. Bermudez was the cleaner striker. He was able to maintain the range and throw knees up the middle. His strikes were more powerful and just had better technique than did Casey Kenney. But Casey Kenney's just a gamer, man. This guy just comes in to get you into a dogfight. And even though he's not as technical in the way he throws his strikes, he is technical in his footwork patterns, being able to move in and out of range, slip and avoid a lot of the shots of the opponents. And stuff like that. He's very good in that regard. And I think Casey Kenney wins this fight. I think that Louis Smolka, like I said, is probably going to have a slight advantage on the feet, but I think Casey Kenney will be able to close the distance and get in close to a clinch range, even if Louis Smolka does attempt submissions, because he's very good with rear naked chokes, guillotines, and throwing up arm bars. I think Casey Kenney is so good defensively, and a lot of people don't give him as much credit as he deserves, that I think he's going to be able to just out-muscle and out-power and out-technique Louis Smolka on the ground. I think that he'll take him down, get in top position, land some good shots from half guard, move to side control, try to hold position. I think Louis Smolka will probably reverse a couple positions, but he'll just end up getting put on the bottom again. And I think Casey Kenney wins this fight via unanimous decision. I think this is going to be a real coming out party for Casey Kenney. I do like Louis Smolka, and I do think he's good. He's talented, and he does have the opportunity to win this fight, but I got to go with Casey Kenney to get the win via unanimous decision. Up next on the prelims, we've got a flyweight fight between former flyweight title challenger and winner of the Ultimate Fighter Undefeated Series, Tim Elliott, who holds a record of 15 wins, 10 losses, and 1 no contest, going up against a newcomer in the UFC, training out of Factory X with Mark Montoya, and that is Brandon Raw Dog Royval. On the feet, I do give a slight advantage to Tim Elliott just because of how awkward he is. He kind of reminds me, and I've said this before, he's like a mixture of Dominic Cruz and there was one other guy that I always compared these two to. It was like Dominic Cruz with a mix of somebody else. Oh man, who is it? I can't think of it. Either way, he's very good. Well, we'll just get to the point. He's very good with his footwork and his movement and his ability to slip shots. In his last fight, I believe he fought Askarov, which was at UFC 246. Came up short on the end of that decision, but I think some people believe that he won 2 rounds to 1. I think first round was obviously it went to Askarov, who's a phenomenal fighter, undefeated in professional mixed martial arts, and he's got a fight coming up against Alexandre Pantoja, which I believe we might have talked about on the previous podcast. If not, we'll talk about it on the next one. But Askarov landed a vicious right hand. I think it was a straight right down the middle, and you saw Elliott just kind of go out on his feet and then come back too. But then he just kind of came into his own. He always kind of fights in a side stance. He trains with James Krause. They were really good friends on The Ultimate Fighter when Krause was on The Ultimate Fighter, and they trained together. James Krause is one of his head coaches, but he's always kind of in, out, switching his stances. He'll come in and try to bump in with that left hip, bump in with the right hip, boom, boom, boom. Try to throw a shot up top to get you to block and then take you down. That's something that Tim Elliott does. He's just awkward. He's good at avoiding shots, but not so good that I think he should keep his hands down all the time, but that's just his style, and I guess it works for some guys. When it comes to Brandon Raw Dog Royval, he's very good in the jiu-jitsu department. He's good on the feet. He's got good striking technique, and but his bread and butter is in the ground game. I watched one of his fights earlier, and it was a fight against Rakan Adwan, and it was at LFA. And this guy literally got taken down, and he went from armbar to armbar on the other side, triangle, armbar again, and eventually he just got the armbar. But once he got the guy on the ground, it was the guy didn't have a chance to breathe. Like, it was just submission attempt after submission attempt after submission attempt over and over and over again. I'll actually go through the highlights really quick right now, and we could watch it again. But he ended up getting taken down by Rakan Adwan, he just immediately went to work from the guard, got the overhook, tried to go for the rubber guard. It didn't work, but immediately just looking for arms, trying to control the legs so the opponent can't pass his legs, and just going for arm bars. He went for an arm bar, kicked off the cage, reverted his hips. He tried to lock up the leg with the arm bar and then try to just keep the opponent on his knee so he couldn't stand up and stack him as much. He tried to roll him over and control the left leg so he could roll him over and get the armbar. The guy almost got out. He switched it over, got the armbar again in the same position, locked up the legs, but the guy had it stacked up. He actually transitioned from a normal armbar lock to almost a figure four type of lock on the opponent's opposite arm so that it gives more pressure and you can get more torque. The guy stepped over. He went back in. He got put into a triangle position. He transitioned from the triangle to the omoplata, then got back to guard and just kept working relentlessly until he got the armbar. And this guy is phenomenal jiu-jitsu. We see a lot of guys with really good grappling, but this guy is phenomenal. And training with a coach like Mark Montoya at Factory X, I think they're going to have a good game plan. And I think he's going to look to go for submissions really early against Tim Elliott. Now, Elliott's very experienced. I think that's pretty obvious. Very experienced at moving in and out and just tricking the opponent to fight into a style of fight that they don't want to get put into. But honestly, man, I think Brandon Raw Dog Royval gets it done. I know that Elliott has fought the tougher competition. He has more experience over the tougher guys, but he has gotten submitted by Davison Figueiredo via guillotine. He's been submitted in a few of his other fights. So I think the majority of his losses actually came via submission. But I think it was a lot of guillotines and maybe an armbar here and there. I'm not 100% sure. But I think that this guy, Brandon Royval, is going to be able to catch him in a submission. I think he's going to catch him in a triangle or an armbar and just constantly keep working in positions until he gets a hold of a submission and gets the finish. So I'm going to go with Brandon Raw Dog Royval to get the win via a second-round submission over the former top contender in the flyweight division, Tim Elliott. Up next is a fight in the light heavyweight division. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but it's an undefeated fighter in Jamal Hill going up against Klidson Farias de Abreu, who holds a record of 15 wins and 4 losses. Obviously undefeated. Jamal Hill's undefeated. Good on the feet, really tall and rangy for the light heavyweight division. Likes to keep the opponent at bay, try to kind of pick him apart and just land enough clean shots and then eventually go in for the kill and land some good land a power shot and put the opponent out. That's mainly what he looks to do in a lot of his fights is put the opponent on the back foot and then land that left hand down the middle and put the opponent away. He throws a lot of right hooks, straight lefts down the center to try to get in close and put the opponent's lights out. He's just very tall and long and rangy for this light heavyweight division. I know that's a lot. That's not really saying much compared to John Jones in that light heavyweight division, but he's powerful and he throws a lot of power into his shots. He did have a fight in the UFC, and he looked pretty good. With being able to maintain the range and keep the opponent at bay and just kind of pick him apart, try to set up the shot to land the left straight down the center and what have you. But he did get hit a few times, but he has good ability to move. Pretty clean technique in his striking, but not the best. When it comes to Klidson Farias de Abreu, 15-4 overall in professional mixed martial arts. This guy, his bread and butter is jiu-jitsu. He's going to look to take your back. He's going to look to grab your neck, and he's going to look to submit you. That's what he tries to do. And honestly, I think it's going to be hard for Klidson Farias de Abreu to get in close and get into a close enough range to lock up a takedown attempt and get on top. But I do think he's going to be able to do it. I think he's going to be able to maybe get a body lock and try to get a trip takedown. It's going to be harder considering how tall Jamal Hill is. But I think that he hands Jamal Hill his first loss via submission. I think he's going to be able to take the back. I think he's going to be able to tire him out on the ground and eventually lock up a rear naked choke and get a submission. I'm going to go with Klidson Abreu to get the win via a third round rear naked choke submission. I'm not really that interested in this fight, to be quite honest with you guys, but it's a good fight nonetheless. And we're going to move on to the next fight, which is a catchweight fight between Billy Quarantillo and the Jinja Ninja, or the Alpha Jinja, I think that's his nickname, the Alpha Jinja, Spike Carlisle. So we'll catch you guys on the second part and, move on from there. All right, so the next fight on the card is going to be it's a catchweight bout, actually. I believe it was going to be in the featherweight division, but obviously catch weight, so it is what it is. And it's a Billy Quarantillo, who holds a record of 13 wins and 2 losses, going up against the Alpha Ginger Spike Carlisle, who holds a record of 9 wins and 1 loss in professional mixed martial arts. This is a good fight. To be honest, Billy Quarantillo was on the Ultimate Fighter season. I believe it was season 15, somewhere around there back in the day. And then he I'm not sure. That might be the wrong season. But he was on the Ultimate Fighter, and he did pretty well. But then they got him on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, and he had a rough go at first in his fight. He was getting taken down. He was getting kind of just out positioned and out wrestled on the top. The guy was controlling him. Looked like he was going to have a rough go, and then the fight kept going, and Quarantillo just pushed forward. Ripped shots to the body, just got in the guy's face, roughed him up from the clinch, and got the job done, finished him. I believe it was a standing TKO in the second round, and he just really just took the life out of him. So that Billy Quarantillo is going to just push forward and put a relentless pace on you to try to break you under the pressure and get a finish. He might not come out and look extremely technical and extremely good in the beginning, but he's going to keep building and building and building and building and building until he breaks you down. Now, when you talk about a guy like the Alpha Ginger, Spike Carlisle, this guy's just wild, man. He comes out, good roundhouse kicks from both stances, orthodox and southpaw, and really good from the clinch. That's one thing you saw in his fight against Elon Cruz was he came forward and landed a lot like a high kick, and it hurt Elon Cruz, and then he tried to shoot in on him, and it didn't, and Carlisle stuffed it, but then he got him in like that clinch position after he stuffed the takedown, and he landed vicious elbows, and this kind of stiffened him up. He dropped him, and he got on top, and he finished him via ground and pound. If you look up some of his highlights, he has good wrestling, good ability to take the opponent down and work from the ground, but a lot of his best work is done on the feet, and his kicking game is probably the strongest out of everything that you see from Spike Carlisle. But they don't call him the Alpha Ginger for no reason, so you got to be careful with a guy like Spike Carlisle. And in this fight, I think that Billy Quarantillo's forward pressure is going to be a big problem for him against a guy like Spike Carlisle. I mean, the guy, he has good takedowns. He's pretty strong and pretty well built for that division. He's had some spinning back fist knockouts. One spinning back fist knockout back in his career before he got into the UFC. He can just the guy's just wild. Like I said, both of these guys are wild, but I think technique wise and just more sharpness wise, I give the advantage to the Alpha Ginger, Spike Carlisle. So he's got good grappling, good submissions, good ability to lock up submissions if he needs to, and he's strong from the top on the ground. And you saw, I mean, the guy's just good, man. I mean, there's not really much else to say. He's got good elbows, and he just kind of is real awkward. But he has the ability to, like I said, frame off in that clinch and land elbows. Good high kicks, and just once he gets you hurt, he's not going to stop. And I really think I'm picking him to beat Billy Quarantillo. Like I said, Billy Quarantillo's good. I think the pressure can get to Spike Carlisle, but I think Carlisle's just awkwardness is going to leave Billy Quarantillo open to get caught with a lot of shots that he doesn't want to get caught with, and eventually it's just going to lead to him getting finished. And I expect Spike Carlisle to get the finish. I'm going to go with the third round TKO because Billy Quarantillo is so tough. I think he'll get taken down and get back up. I think he'll have some good success closing the distance in clinch range. Not really tying up in like a Muay Thai clinch, maybe like overhook and underhook on the one side and trying to rip shots to the body, getting close, push him against the fence. But I think Carlisle's kicking game and just his awkwardness and his strength, if it does go to the ground, is going to pay dividends. So I'm going to say third round TKO for the Alpha Ginger, Spike Carlisle. Up next, the final fight on the prelims is in the flyweight division, and it's 2 top contenders in that flyweight division. You have the number 2 ranked Katlyn Chookagian, who's coming off a loss against Valentina Shevchenko in her shot to get the flyweight championship from Bullet, and she's going up against Bullet Valentina's sister, Antonina Shevchenko, who's ranked 12th in the division and has a record of 8 wins and 1 loss. This is a good fight. I think that it's just good matchmaking overall, considering Chookagian's coming off that loss to Valentina, who's the champion at 125, and now she's fighting her sister. So can her sister do what Bullet did to Caitlin Chookagian, or can Chookagian beat her sister and then maybe work her way back up to a title shot? Do I think that Chookagian gets a title shot with a win here? No, I think she needs like maybe two more wins after this, just because of how badly she got dominated against Valentina. And that doesn't mean that Chookagian's not a good fighter. She's great. I mean, her record overall is 13 wins and 3 losses. So this girl can go. She's got good hands. I think her best attributes are her footwork and her ability to box, her boxing ability. Her 1-2s, her ability to fake and feint to try to get into range. Throw leg kicks on the inside and the outside of the lead leg of the opponent, or rear leg, depending on what stance they're in, to really just bring herself to beat whoever her opposition would be. But she's very good. Like I said, her boxing and her footwork and her movement. She never really stops moving, and she's very, very powerful for the 125-pound division. Good right hand, good left hook. She likes to go right hand and then follow up with the left hook. Good 1-2s, and then ability to get out of range. And good kicks. Even though she got out-kicked by Bullet Valentina, she was able to get hit with a lot of kicks. She did land good side kicks to the front leg, inside, outside leg kicks. She tried for a hook kick, roundhouse kicks to the head, and she's quick with it. She's got a good snap on her kicks as well. Now, going up against Antonina Shevchenko, she's a little bit different from the way that her sister Bullet Valentina fights. In the clinch, she's amazing. She's very, very good, and that is going to be her key to win this fight, is get into clinch range, get into the tie plum, or get into the single collar clinch with the control on the bicep control on the opposite side, and just land knees, elbows, knees to the body, knees to the thighs, and just try to wear out Caitlin Chookagian against the fence, because she is relentless in her boxing ability. She'll come forward and she'll just try to pepper you with shots, just 1-2, 1-2, kicks up the middle, kicks to the legs, kicks up top. But her boxing is really her bread and butter. Her 1-2, 1-2, 3-2 into pull the hip back to throw the hook. She can have some good success with this against Antonina Shevchenko. And I think that is going to be her biggest advantage in the fight against Antonina, is she's going to have to try to keep it at boxing range, not kicking range. She can go at kicking range, but I think obviously the Shevchenko sisters training out of Tiger Muay Thai, their Muay Thai is top notch. So I wouldn't want to stay at kicking range against a girl like Antonina Shevchenko. But I do think that the clinch is going to be the biggest advantage for Antonina. And on the ground, she's very good as well. Chookagian is good off of her back, can throw up submissions like triangles and arm bars. But I think that Antonina is just better on the ground. I think that she can lock up an arm bar, lock up a triangle, lock up something from her back, and put her to sleep if she gets the submission, or make her tap out. But I think the clinch is really the key for this fight. You saw how much trouble that Chookagian had on the bottom of Valentina Shevchenko and in the clinch against Bullet Valentina. The knees up the middle and elbows. And I think the knees to the body and knees up top to the head are going to prove a big factor for Antonina against Caitlin Chookagian. And I think that she's going to get the win here. I'm picking Antonina to beat the number 2 ranked fighter, Caitlin Chookagian. I just think, like I said, I think the clinch is going to be a big mismatch for Caitlin Chookagian in this fight. From the single collar clinch to the double. If she gets the tie plum, I mean, it's just going to be ugly. It's going to be gnarly. And I think she's going to get the decision. I don't think she finishes Chookagian, because I think Chookagian is just tough. I think she's gritty. I think she can hang on for all 3 rounds. I would expect the first round to be pretty close, kind of just a more feeling out process from Antonina, while Caitlin tries to stick to her boxing and try to throw some side kicks from range and front kicks up the middle to keep Antonina away from her. But she's going to have to get in close and close the range, and that's no easy feat against Antonina. So I'm picking Antonina Shevchenko to get the win via unanimous decision over the number 2 ranked Caitlin Chookagian. Now, will she fight her sister for the championship? I think they've said before she does not want to fight her sister. But, it is what it is. And eventually they're probably going to have to fight unless she relinquishes and moves up to 135, which I could definitely see Bullet Valentina doing, relinquishing the title, moving up to 135, and then facing Amanda Nunez in the 3rd fight, the trilogy. Let's move to the main card now. So that was it for the prelims. Now we move to the main card. In the first fight on the main card in the women's strawweight division, we have Mackenzie Dern, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu phenom, who holds a record of 7 wins and 1 loss in professional mixed martial arts, going up against Hannah Shockwave Cyphers, who's 10 wins, 4 losses overall in professional mixed martial arts. Now, I never really want to, discredit opposition in these fights. I always want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and really explain their aspects of where they can be the best at. But I just think that this is a huge mismatch. I think that Mackenzie Dern is going to run right through Hannah Cifers. And I think that with Mackenzie Dern, she kind of went away from her bread and butter. I mean, this girl is a formally ranked #1 IBJJF competitor, and that's the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation. And she's an ADCC and Nogi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champion. She has amazing grappling, but she kind of went away from it in her loss to Amanda Rivas. She tried to keep it on the feet, try to strike, pop, 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 and she just got outstruck. She got out, witted on the feet and got beat. If she goes in here and uses her jiu-jitsu, she's going to submit Hannah Cifers and probably do it in the first round. And that's kind of what I expect from her. I don't expect her to try to strike, even though I think that her striking is better than Hannah Cifers. I watched highlights of Cifers, and even though she's decent, she's not very good in terms of striking. She keeps her hands pretty low. Her shots are very labored. Nothing comes out super crisp and super clean. And I just think Mackenzie Dern can beat her on the feet. So she might look to strike a little bit more in this fight, but I think she's really going to look to take her down, get her back, get her neck, and get a rear naked choke. And that's actually what I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Mackenzie Dern to probably fake up top and shoot in for a double, get the takedown, take her back, and get a rear naked choke submission. So I'm picking Mackenzie Dern to get the win via a first round rear naked choke. And it's a mismatch. I like Mackenzie Dern. She got that cake, but I'm excited. I'm not really excited for the fight, but I think Mackenzie Dern gets the win here nonetheless. Up next, we have a very good fight in the 155-pound division against two former Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series alumni, and it's the Predator, Roosevelt Roberts, who holds a record of 8 wins and 1 loss, going up against Chatatuska, Brock Weaver, who holds a record of 14 wins and 4 losses. I believe that Chatatuska Brock Weaver is the only other Native American on the UFC roster besides Nico Montano. And so he's always looking to represent his Native American culture, and the guy's good. He's very good. You look at his last fight; it was a controversial loss. Got shots to the back of the head, and it was a TKO. I believe it might have actually been a knee on the ground, and it knocked him out cold, or he got finished pretty badly. But it was a no contest because it was an illegal shot. And he's good. He's good. He's good at defending takedowns against the fence. But I don't think he's going to be able to defend as many takedowns from a guy like Roosevelt Roberts. He's more of a boxer, more of get in your face, try to land that right hand down the center, and just really try to bully you and land big power shots with his punches, big power punches. When you look at Roosevelt Roberts, the Predator, I think he's much more well-rounded. I've been very high on this guy ever since I saw him on the Tuesday Night Contender Series and I watched some of his fights in the UFC. This guy's good everywhere, man. He's very, very good from the top on the ground. If he gets you down, he can control you from side control. Very good top pressure and very good ability to have a base. If he has you in a stacked guard, he'll have a good base so you can't knock him off balance. He'll move to the mount. Really good ability to control the opponent from side control and laying ground and pound elbows, knees to the body from the ground, and stuff like that. And on the feet, he's no slouch either. Very, very solid striker. Good 1-2s. Just power in every shot that he throws, but he's very clean. His defense is more of like a Philly shell and a traditional block, where he'll block on the one side and then frame off with the lead hand, or block and then roll with the shot on the lead side, kind of like a Floyd Mayweather, kind of adapted for MMA. Not that drastic to where he only uses like a Philly shell or a helmet guard and then a frame on the lead hand type of style to defend, but he's very good at it. And I think that Roosevelt Roberts is just a better fighter here. Do I think that Chatatuska Brock Weaver can beat him? Yes, I think he can catch him with a good shot on the feet and knock him out. But I still think that just overall, Roosevelt Roberts is just better here. And like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I think this guy has a bright future in MMA, and I think he can do a lot of things very well in terms of his jiu-jitsu is good, his ground game. He's got guillotines from standing. Control on the top, ability to lock up submissions. He's just good everywhere. And I think that he's going to be able to take down Brock Weaver, and I think that he's going to put him in a clinch position right off the bat. I think he might try to start the first round off just popping the jab, kicks to the body, 1-2, move, cut angles, and try to stay out of the way of the power shot of Brock Weaver. And then he's going to close the distance, get him up against the fence, and try to wear him out, and then eventually get him to the ground and work the top position and get some good ground and pound strikes and just have better overall control over Brock Weaver on the ground. I'm going with Roosevelt Roberts to win the fight here. I think it might be close for the first round, but like I said, I just think that Roosevelt Roberts is better everywhere the fight goes. He can get caught with a big shot, but I think he's smart enough and technical enough and more and defensively responsible enough to avoid a big shot, and he just kind of picks apart Brock Weaver here. So I'm going to go with Roosevelt Roberts to get the win via unanimous decision in this one. But it should be a good fight, and I'm excited to see it nonetheless. What's next? Let's move to the next fight, which is going to be the co-main event of the evening. Obviously, before we get to this, Kevin Holland was supposed to fight on this card, but he got injured. He tried to go back-to-back. Like 2 fights in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it didn't work out. He got injured, shoulder injury, so it sucks. I was really looking forward to seeing Kevin Holland, Trailblazer, perform on this card. I think this guy is very good, but we'll see whenever he comes back, and I wish him a speedy recovery. This next fight is the co-main event of the evening. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one, but we got to cover it. So it's the heavyweight division. The number 12 ranked Blagoy Ivanov, who holds a record of 18 wins, 3 losses, and 1 no contest, going up against the 13 ranked Augusto Sakai, who holds a record of 14 wins, 1 loss, and 1 no contest. This fight was previously booked. I want to say maybe it was for UFC Fight Night Columbus, or no, you know what? I think it was for the UFC Fight Night that was headlined by Glover Teixeira and Anthony Smith. I think that this fight was booked for that card, and then it just fell through and it didn't go to plan. But Blagoy Ivanov, this guy's tough, and he got stabbed in the chest. If you ever haven't heard any of his stories, he got stabbed in the chest. I think he got stabbed in the heart, and he survived, but he's got that big indent in his chest and a huge scar. So this guy's tough. You can throw the kitchen sink at this guy, and he's not going to go anywhere. He took bombs against Derek Lewis. Heavy shots, and just kept pushing forward. And he lost the fight, but man, the guy just never stopped moving. And he's very good with his judo and his wrestling, his sambo. He's very good at coming in, throwing shots, and then getting takedowns and winding up in top position. When it comes to Augusto Sakai, I don't remember seeing him fight, but I would give Blagoy Ivanov the advantage almost anywhere this fight goes. I think he can control him on the ground. Good in the top position, like I said, because of his sambo background, I believe. Good ability to stand up from the ground if he does get taken down by any chance. And he's good on the feet. Not the greatest in terms of his striking. He more looks to wrestle, but he's just tough, man, and he doesn't stop moving forward. And against Augusto Sakai, I just think that Sakai can catch him. I believe he did catch Marcin Tybura with a good shot. I believe he fought him in the UFC, and he does have good ability to, move in and try to land a big shot. But I just think that Ivanov has faced the tougher competition. I think that he's better over anywhere this fight takes place, and I just think he gets the win. Records, they're pretty close, 18-3, 1 no contest to 14-1-1. But I give Blagoy Ivanov the win here. I think he wins I think he gets a submission finish. I'm going to go Blagoy Ivanov via 3rd round submission. And now we move to the main event. The best fight on the card, without a doubt. In the welterweight division, you've got the number 1 ranked Tyron, the chosen one, Woodley, who holds a record of 19 wins, 4 losses, and 1 no contest, going up against the number 6 ranked Gilbert Durinho Burns, who holds a record of 18 wins and 3 losses. Phenomenal fight here. And I talked about it on the first part. I think that the only person who loses out in terms of this fight being made is Leon Rocky Edwards, because Edwards was supposed to fight. He was supposed to fight. Oh, what's his name? Oh my God, I can't even think. Sorry, brain fart. He was supposed to fight Woodley at UFC Fight Night in London, which I believe was going to be at the end of March or like somewhere in the middle of March. It was supposed to be the London card, and that fight ended up getting canceled. And then they were going to move it to the US, but that didn't happen either because of the whole coronavirus pandemic. I believe that was actually the first card to get fully wiped out because of the coronavirus. But, this is a big shot and a big opportunity for Gilbert Burns to get a win over a former welterweight champion in Tyron Woodley. You know, Gilbert Burns is coming off wins over Gunnar Nelson, where he was good on the feet and had an ability to out-grapple Gunnar Nelson, which is a big say and a big feat, because Gunnar Nelson's a very, very good grappler. He's good from the top. He's good off of his back. And if he gets you to the ground, a lot of people don't get up. You know, Leon Rocky Edwards fought him and was able to actually control him on the ground too. So maybe Gunnar Nelson isn't as good as we once thought that he was in terms of grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and wrestling and all that. But Burns got the win over him, and then he's obviously coming off to that last win over Damian Maia at UFC Fight Night Brasilia, where he timed the jab of Damian Maia. He threw a lazy jab, and he came over the top of it with a clean check left hook, dropped him, jumped on him, and got the first round finish with ground and pound via TKO. So this is a big, big opportunity for Burns, and I know a lot of people are counting him out because, you know, Woodley hasn't fought since his last fight where he lost the championship to Usman in March at UFC 235. He got kind of dominated. He got dominated in that fight. Got out-wrestled, got outstruck on the feet. Woodley just wasn't there. The shots that Usman threw were not clean by any means. I don't think Usman is the cleanest striker, so I think they were sloppy, but he just out-wrestled them. Phenomenal wrestling. Going one direction and then taking him the other way with the body lock throw was phenomenal. Getting takedowns up against the fence, ground and pounding, putting him up against the fence, and just constantly hitting everywhere. Knees to the thighs, knees to the body. Punching the thigh, good ground and pound, just constantly working, never letting Woodley breathe. Now, can Burns do that? I do think he has an ability to do that. Let's go over the stats really quick. In terms of reach, it's 74 inches for Woodley to a 71-inch reach for Gilbert Burns. So on the feet, I think Woodley is going to have to stay out of range, kind of fake and feint, and then explode like he always does. Explode with that right hand. Explode with that right hand. Try to drop him, explode with a combination, blah, 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 and get out of the way, and then just work moving laterally. You know, one thing about Woodley is he's patient. He's very technical, and you're not going to get him emotional. One thing you never see Woodley be is emotional. He's very light on the feet, kind of moving side to side, and he'll let the fight come to him and play a very smart, very technical game. I do think Woodley's the more technical guy. He's obviously got more power. If he lands on Gilbert Burns' chin with the right hand, he can put him to sleep like anybody else in that division, or at 185, or at, or in the middleweight division. I think he can knock out middleweights too. He's got that much power. He's huge for that 170 division. So the reach is going to play a factor for Woodley. I think he's going to want to keep him at range, try to pick him, poke him, prod, set up the right hand, and try to put him out. In the wrestling, I think that Woodley has the wrestling advantage, but once it hits the ground, Gilbert Burns has the advantage in the jiu-jitsu and in the grappling. And that's where I think that this fight turns the corner. When you look at leg reach, we'll go over some of the other stats. 42.5-inch reach for Woodley and 40 inches for Gilbert Burns. So he's got a 2.5-inch reach in terms of leg reach. He could look to land low kicks. I think that could be a big factor, but he does not want to get the leg kick caught and taken down by Gilbert Burns, or the leg kick caught and possibly turned into a heel hook or a leg lock attempt where Gilbert Burns jumps into a leg lock. That would not be good against a, multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion in Gilbert Burns. Strikes landed per minute, 2.64 for the former champion to 3.22 for Gilbert Burns. So Gilbert Burns is more active than is Woodley, but we already kind of knew that because, like I said, Woodley's very patient. He just looks for openings and then tries to drop the bomb on your mom. In terms of significant strikes percentages, 47% of significant strikes land for Woodley, but 44% land for Burns. So they're very close in that realm of the fight. Very, very close. Absorbed per minute, 3.95 for Woodley to 3.25 for Gilbert Burns. So again, very close. And then in terms of significant strike and strike defense, they're equal at 57% each. So this is a close fight, and it's a tough matchup. When it comes to the grappling, that's where we give the big advantages to Gilbert Burns, I think. Takedown average for Woodley is 0.44 in a 15-minute fight to 2.6 takedowns for Gilbert Burns. So Burns is looking to take you down. He's looking to get top position, looking to get your back, and looking to submit you. When it comes to takedown accuracy, 38% for Woodley to 39% for Gilbert Burns. Takedown defense, 92% of takedowns defended for Woodley to 42% defended for Gilbert Burns. So that could be a problem. considering the fact that Woodley is so hard to take down, it's going to be hard for Gilbert Burns to be able to use his jiu-jitsu unless he enters, maybe he tries to pull guard on Woodley. Maybe he tries to go for a takedown and then jump up to the back and crawl up the back. I mean, there's different things he can do to get to the jiu-jitsu, and I think that could be a big advantage. I think the jiu-jitsu is the biggest advantage and the biggest opportunity for Gilbert Burns to win this fight. In submission averages, 0.27 for Woodley to 0.71 for Gilbert Burns. So Burns has a higher submission average, and I think he's going to be looking for submissions in this fight without a doubt. When it comes to the striking, like I said, I give the advantage to Woodley. I think that he has more power, but here's what I think is going to happen. Woodley has more power and ability to set up shots, better explosiveness. You know, he's kind of like brings a football style approach to movement to MMA striking. He's very explosive. So it's bah, 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 and just coming in, trying to put you to sleep, make you really, really just think that he's going to stand back and then bah, bah, explode. With Gilbert Burns, I think the key for him on the feet is pity pat. Pity pat strikes. We've said this multiple times on the podcast. I think Burns has the ability to try to land just pop, 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 just pick apart Woodley, get him to overcommit on a shot, and then maybe he shoots underneath the overhand right, gets a body lock, trips him, gets his back, and tries to submit him from the ground. I think that the pity pat and the activity of Gilbert Burns is going to be the key for him in this fight, and I think it's going to work very well for him against a guy like Tyron Woodley. I know a lot of people are expecting Woodley to come in here and just put out Gilbert Burns. Could it happen? Absolutely. He could catch him with a right hand right at the beginning of the first round and knock him out, but I just don't see it happening. I think Burns is the guy that people are counting out, but he's continuing to prove it that he's better than people think. And I think that this fight is going to be the coming out party for Gilbert Burns. I think he's going to pity pat Woodley on the feet, try to use fakes and feints to draw out sloppy strike attempts from Woodley, which you have seen work with Usman. One thing that worked with Usman and Burns are kind of similar in the way that they strike. Very kind of low stance, almost like they're putting their hands out to feel out your shots and see where the range are, and then pop, 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 pop. And I think he's going to try to use fakes and feints to draw out a reaction from Woodley, and then pop. Draw a reaction, pop, pop. Draw a reaction, pop, pop, pop. Shoot a takedown. Draw a reaction, tie him up in the clinch, and put him against the fence. And I think that Woodley is going to lose this fight. I'm picking Gilbert Burns to defeat Tyron Woodley via unanimous decision. I think he's just going to be the more active guy. I think he's going to get hurt once in this fight, but I think he'll be able to recover with his defensive ability because of his, great jiu-jitsu. He'll be able to tie him up and recover if he does get hurt or go to a clinch position. And I think he's going to win. I think Gilbert Burns gets the win via split decision and moves his way up closer to that 170-pound title shot. But guys, those were my predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love making these episodes for you. If you love the podcast, get it out to anybody you can. That includes your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your coworkers, anybody you know who's a fan of mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. Tell them about the Touch 'Em Up podcast. I'm working on getting another interview with a professional fighter from the UFC. Hopefully we can work that out in the coming week or so. And I'll have more information for that when it comes closer. But thank you guys for listening. Leave a review on all the podcast apps. That includes Stitcher, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else, Spotify, anywhere else you can leave a review or promote the Touch 'Em Up podcast. Please help me get out to anybody we can. This has been episode 95 of the Touch 'Em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Have a good night, everybody. All right.